Festival, and we're so happy you could all join us today. I'm also very pleased to introduce you to today's panelists for this talkback, who's Rosemary D'Alessandro, who's Joan's mother and founder of the Joan D'Alessandro Memorial Foundation, and also Vanessa Martino, who is the director, producer, editor, cinematographer of this award-winning documentary, which premiered at the Hampton Doc Fest in 2023. And so personally, this is actually the third time I think I've seen the film now, and it hits the same every time, I have to say. You know, for me, it really hits and resonates that really mothers get called sometimes to step into roles that they would not have expected, but that's what a mother's love can transform a mother into a warrior, as it did here with Rosemary, for sure. And we're also so grateful that Vanessa kind of knew the story, remembered the story, and then brought it to the screen as she did. So let's start with you, Rosemary. Rosemary, please tell us a little bit about how you found the strength. I know we see it on the screen, but how did you find the strength to see through all these various chapters that came through Joan's life?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you
Microphone.
for coming. Vanessa always helps me. What do I help you with?
Oh, everything.
Okay. Okay. I want to say thank you to all of you for coming. I want to say thank you to Y for what they did to sponsor, and to this whole cultural center that really brings art, you know, into the world. And then last of all, to Vanessa. Now, Vanessa lived in Hillsdale, and her mother still lives in Hillsdale, and Vanessa will probably tell you more, but the thing is, she's been connected to Hillsdale, and here she is, saying the story that has affected Hillsdale so much, okay? And as far as there are two of her assistants here, there's Ryan, and there's Javier, I call Xavier, okay, Javier. And they're here. Could you just show yourselves?
Yeah, Javier produced the film, he's right there. And Ryan did the beautiful graphics and animations that you saw.
And there were so many more, but you know, everybody can't come. And that's what makes it happen, okay? So, thanks for Vanessa, you know, to seeing there was a story there, you know? And then the way you told the story, that really, I can tell that you wanted to get justice there, shown in that movie. But besides justice, hope, right? And that's what makes us all, like get over the sadness. So, you know, Vanessa, you know, I congratulate you. You have so many awards, 4 awards, Los Angeles and New York City. Big festival in New York City. and one in Los Angeles and 2 others. So people are seeing this, you know, and for you to be here, you know, to have this personal contact, you know, you're here like making me be stronger. Okay? So you asked me what makes me be strong. From the beginning, it was, I didn't want, what is this here? I'm always tangled. Okay. From the beginning, you know, it was, I wasn't going to let him control me more than he did. And one of the ways I got that done was releasing myself from any sense of revenge, any sense of like like, oh, you know, I'm going to be the one. I'm going through this. You know, I'm going to show what I've gone through. No, no. That I was going to push that away, and that was going to give me strength.
How long?
Okay, honey, how long? How long did it take? Well, I'll tell you. Remember, she died on Holy Thursday, and she was found on Easter, right? Oh, those 2 days in my faith are amazing days of hope. So about a couple weeks later, it processed in my head. And I said, there's going to be something good from this. You see? So that gave me strength. So then what I did was look for signs every day to see what the message was. So by looking for signs, you know, I mean, we could do this in our lives, right? With things that happen. You look for a sign, and that gives you hope. And you might find it that day, or you might not. So it took 20 years to find it, okay, to sign. That was when we started the fight to keep him in. And then I had to bring John alive. So people were saying, I was dwelling, I was this, I was that. But you know what? Guess what? I believed in the message of hope so much. You know, and that doesn't discount pain. I mean, you saw it there. You saw that I went from like I looked like a balloon, because I have myasthenia gravis. And at that time I had just had a surgery, and they would put me on crazy medicines. So, you know, I puffed up like a balloon. But you know what? It's okay. You still go for what you believe in. You know, I didn't get, you know, I says, I gotta be humble now. See myself like that. Oh. So, but I'm saying I go through all the feelings that you go through. You know, all the feelings, you know. But I believe in something so much for the good of all people. Not just thinking of Joan. Starts with her, not just thinking of me. And I tell you, you know, I could have moved a mountain with that thought, and I'm doing it today, okay? But I want to reach each one of people, each one of you, you know, with what you go through, and to go through it like with, you know, I hope the movie, this beautiful film, doesn't keep you sad inside. It gives you that vigor to go and do the things you want to do and not be afraid, because that's the way you're going to find out who you are, who you are, who you are, who you are. That's what I found about me, you see? So, this is the way I get strength, everybody. But even 9 other things too. You know, I have 2 other children, you know, the regular things. You know, I have 2 other children. They needed consideration. You know, I wasn't having children. You know, maybe one mistake I made was, maybe I was too considerate, and I wasn't bringing out maybe some of my pain, you know, what I was going through. So, you know, that's the way it was. But at least I know they were children, and they weren't stopped from that. So there are so many other things. You know, I wrote a book. You saw the card maybe on the table, and you get more details. That it's a big book, and there are letters of the killer, more than 300 of them, and I parallel my life to them. You know, yeah. So,
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Vanessa, I'd like to ask you, I mean, obviously Rosemary shared your connection to Hillsdale, which, you know, I would imagine is, you know, one of the reasons you wanted to bring this story to the screen. What was your motivation for making the film?
Yeah, so as Rosemary mentioned, I grew up in Hillsdale, and if you're from there, you know this story. Future generations, because of Rosemary's activism, never forgot Joan, never forgot what happened to her. I was a Girl Scout, and it was just something that was always kind of in my mind for all these years. I didn't know Rosemary personally. I didn't know the D'Alessandros, even though they lived just across town, and I was now living in New York. But I was always so struck by her community organizing, her grassroots activism, this idea that this woman could go through the worst thing that anyone could imagine happening to them, and still continue to fight and work for others and work for the community. It was just really powerful to me. And I was shocked, honestly, that nothing had been made in the form of a documentary yet. Rosemary is in the media constantly. She's done a lot of like news-style broadcast interviews and things like that, and there's always been tons of coverage of the case. But I felt that I could bring to it something that was different, something that was more about loss and what it means to be a mother, and the lengths a mother will go to protect her child, as you kind of mentioned in the beginning. I think I wanted to get into not the true crime nature of it, of course it is in that genre, but I didn't want to make a film about the killer, and I didn't want to make a film about sensationalizing that aspect of the case. I wanted to make the human story from the mother's perspective of what suffering a loss like that can do to a person, what it can do to a family, and what it can do to a community. And I hope that I achieved that.
And you have to remember, you're very young, talking about being in your 20s. Being in your 20s, right?
When I started the project, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like mid-20s, right? And then, you know what I forgot to mention? Where's Michael and John? Remember you worked with them too?
Yeah, Michael and John, you see in the film, Rosemary's
Michael and John,
youngest
where are
sons. Did a ton of tremendous work and worked with our production and really made it happen
Michael,
for
stand
us.
up, John, stand up.
So Vanessa, I've also, just watching the film and listening to what you just said, what part of the story, as it was kind of unfolding and you were putting it together, did one part hit you differently than the other pieces to it? Because there's so many stages to the story.
Do you mean on an emotional level or artistic level?
Yeah, I think on any level. I guess, was there any piece that hit you differently, in terms of than maybe you expected, because you knew some level of the story, like when you actually started to put it together? Did any of it?
Sure, I mean, there was a ton I didn't know. I only knew the basics of this case, and I did a deep dive. I mean, Rosemary and John and Michael have this amazing archive. As you can see it in the film, I really lucked out. It was beautifully organized for me to just dive into pretty much all the news coverage. I think, what I went in knowing very little, but when you make a doc, what I like to do is it's a process of discovery. And in that learning process, you're kind of unfolding the story for the audience and yourself, and that's kind of the approach I like to take. I never knew of Rosemary's, personal sacrifices with her family, and that hit me pretty intensely when you started opening up to me and sharing that with me and what you went through on that level.
I remember when you said, I said, I won't let them control me. You lit up. You had such, almost a different kind of joy on your face. I never forget when we were in my room. And almost like, yay, yay.
Yeah, her persistence.
Yay,
Yeah.
because that's what that's what was going to help her too, to know that.
Yeah, I think to know about her driving force, the first half is really Joan's story and the emotional journey of the crime, and then we always kind of describe the second half in the 90s up to modern day as that's Rosemary's story. And there is the feminist in me and the person in me that wants to see a mother just go out there and be like, that's my daughter, you're not going to do that to my family, and I'm not going to stop. And that is very empowering. And then the portion in the film when she says, sometimes people are going to hurt you, but you still have to do it. And I think that's the message also that I wanted to send back to community organizing and grassroots activism. And Rosemary went from living a pretty regular life in the suburbs to becoming this powerhouse, and it was always within her. And unfortunately, this tragic event was what made it occur. But she's a powerful force, and I think everyone who knows her personally knows that. And it was wonderful to kind of really get into that and inside that world.
It was hard for you, Vanessa. Well, but see, Vanessa, what was good is you took the risk. And I really believe that you gotta take risks. Even if it doesn't work out. Because one of the things that's so important is when you take risks, you're more open. When you take risks, you're not in a secret place like that, holding everything back. You see? When you don't hold everything back, right? This is what I found. This is what I found out. When you don't hold everything back and you open, that's when, you get good side effects, you find out more good things about yourself, okay? And funny things about yourself that you don't take so serious. And, but you see, and you also start not being afraid, this is what happened, to stand up for things you need to stand up for that are hard. And if you could take a little bit of that from this, that you might want to try to stand up for something that's just a little bit hard for you, that could help others. But when you're helping others, everybody, you're helping yourself too, because you're part of others. We're all people, right? So, I just say that to you, she had to take risks. I took risks, as you saw. Do you know what? I want to tell you something. I almost lost my life, when I was being choked. But I didn't think I was going to, because there was Michael and John, you see? And there was all this message that Joan was giving to me, because I could be a voice. And then I also almost lost my life at the hands of 2 other members of the family. Yeah. And, one was my child. And of course we can't put everything in, it's too much, that's in the book. But no, I don't say exactly, I don't say names. But you could figure it out. And then in-law, and then the other child, supporting that. But you see, honey, I don't know, the voice inside me, I speak, she's so powerful, Joan is so powerful. And she wants to help everybody. And the legacy is going to go on. And there's a site, where she was found. That's a beautiful, peaceful place to go to. There's so much. So, Vanessa, maybe we could do something and talk like in front of 2,000 people. Okay? You know what I mean? Yeah. And maybe some of you could start, bring awareness to all this, what we do. Bring awareness. So it'll triple. Hear what we have about maybe, how much? 30 people. So we got to 90. So let's go for it.
Well, I have to say I was sitting in the back when the film ended, and you were encouraging people to clap and saying it was okay to find joy. And I think that really is the message that resonates from you for sure, is, all the messages and the blessings, that have come from a very difficult situation for you and your family. And we're so grateful that you're so generous to have shared your pain and put it into action and put legislation in place that have saved many families from the ordeal that you and your sons have had to go through.
We're going for 2 more legislations
Yes.
now, one on the federal level and one in New York State.
So for those of you in the audience, as we wrap up, do you have any questions that you would like to ask Rosemary or Vanessa about the
I
film?
forgot your name, honey. What's your
Oh,
name?
Helen.
Yeah, Helen.
Helen. Yes, that's okay.
Helen, you talk about me a lot and so forth, but I couldn't do it without you. This wouldn't be possible. So I'm just telling you, don't forget that.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
What was the legislation that resulted in your advocacy?
Okay, well, 97 was Jones Law.
Right, and what is Jones?
That says no parole ever for a person that sexually assaults and murders a child under 14. Under 14. And then the next one was the federal law. It was the same, but on federal property. It's not national. National means like every state, but every state has federal property. And then after 2000, the anniversary of that is coming up on next Sunday, is Justice of Victims Law. And in that one, a person, like say if someone has like someone that like got murdered, so, and that person gets money, they can sue that person. Even any time. Before we only had 2 years, now there's no time at all. So there's some people got $10 million because of the law that we got through. Justice Victims Law, and that was 2000. Then 2004 was in New York State. That was for the under 14 one. 2017, we got it for under 18, all minors. Okay, that means New York City. That's how I got the motivation. You were hearing so much about human trafficking and these teenagers. So worked on that. We worked on that 7 years. Remember, this time when we got the law through, it was more digital. You didn't have a phone. You didn't have personal the same way. So you had to do a lot with the emails. A little harder to do, but not impossible. And then now we're going for the New York State law to make that for all minors. And then on the federal law, which has been introduced on the federal level, that's for all minors. Now the one in New York State, it is in the Codes Committee. So in New York State, the way it works is like January to June is when they work on the laws. After that, they do different things. So now in January, then I'll start calling them and say, let's do to focus them. So I always found out to get laws through, it was always about focusing them. Focus. And sometimes you really have to be, like good aggressive. Other times, I could just be myself, my gentle voice, But I'm the other way too.
Yeah, it's not in the film because it would be a lot to cover, and something that could really go into is Rosemary's advocacy work for other victims and other people who have lost children to violent crime. So her legislation primarily focuses on the very specific egregious crime of sexually assaulting a child and murdering them. So it's pretty specific, of course, in who it impacts with parole. And in the 70s, when this happened, it was a lenient sentencing period. If this crime happened, later on in the 90s even, this guy was a Ted Bundy type character. There was no mistaking that. And he wouldn't have been sentenced that way, even if it was later on. So that was just the way the court worked in 73, 74 when that happened.
You see, you could every day. Yeah. I mean, it would be, you could attend. You have the 70s and you have the 90s.
Microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you have the 70s and you have the 90s. I mean, that was brilliant, baby, brilliant. Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
Would you at any point believe that an animal like this deserves the death penalty?
If they had the death penalty, right, I wouldn't have stopped it. Okay? But the federal people came to me, like Congress people, and Mark Glass, who's an activist also in California, and they were asking me if I would do it, I would do like the, death penalty. And you know what? No answer is justice.
No answer.
Death penalty isn't justice, the other isn't justice. Because to get the death penalty, you don't even know if you're going to get it. It'll take 10 years. So you're working on it, and you're fighting with it, and fighting with it. So I thought, so I didn't go death penalty. I did that, and they agreed. We didn't do death penalty. And then you know what? I don't know. I don't know if I could have, at that time I know I couldn't, say, it's because of what I said, these people are going to die. And it's not me, it's up to God. But that sound like too religious to you? I don't know how to say it, but, nothing is you try to get the best answer, yeah. But if they had it, I would have stopped it.
Well, thank you so much for staying. We do have one more talk back to share from Stray. I just want to share too, again, we have Joan's Joy, the foundation for Joan D'Alessandro. There's information about the foundation outside. I also want to say that Rosemary's been very kind to support Healing Space, which is a program of the YWCA Northern New Jersey, which is a 24-hour hotline for anyone who's been impacted by sexual violence. We have information outside in case anyone in the room, if this triggered anything for you watching it. I know that, it can be difficult, especially if you have a history of your own. Please feel free. We have a 24-hour hotline that you can call at any point to get support. And we have one of our staff here, Melissa, in the back of the room, who's part of our Healing Space program as well, who joined us today for the film. So
you can trust that the money that you give is going to be used, right? Because Joan's Joy has been doing this. But before we looked into it, we saw it and so on. That was really honorable.
but I encourage you to stay connected to Joan's Joy and to all the films. I know Vanessa will have many more coming out, and I actually was connected to Vanessa because the YWCA sponsored a film of hers a few years ago as well. And, we're so grateful that you're out there bringing these important stories to all of us so that we can see them.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure showing the film and sharing it with you all today.
Did you talk about the next showing?
Oh, yeah. If anyone lives in New York City or wants to travel, it's going to be playing November 18th at the Big Apple Film Festival in the afternoon. So come on by. Come on into the city and watch the film.
And do you have a connection?
You can go to daughterofminefilm.com. She's my publicist. You can go to daughterofminefilm.com to stay up to date on all showings and screenings. and yeah, we have an Instagram page too. So yeah, daughterofminefilm.com, and you can get in touch with our film team there, and we'll keep you up to date on where you can see the film in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the inspiration.
We're gonna come